Hi, I'm Joan Kahn. I'm doing a demo today of painting swatches for your grayscale. First, I'd like to show you the materials. You're going to need a ruler to draw the grid onto the Bristol board, and the increments that I suggest are 1 inch. So make 1 inch marks along the long side, starting from the same short edge. So then you're going to bisect the paper with a long mark at 7 inches in, so that you'll have two sides of swatches. You're going to start with a white swatch and work your way around to a middle gray. On the second sheet that you do, you're going to do 2 sheets. You're going to start with a middle gray and go to black. So today I'm going to show you how to paint the first swatch. The materials again are a metal ruler to draw the grid with, a palette knife. You can get a less expensive or a more expensive one. Important that you use a palette knife because they're flexible. So it must be a palette knife, not some other instrument. Pencil, of course, for drawing the grid. A flat 1 inch wash brush, soft. The main attribute it has to be is soft. A receptacle for water, a container for water, and a bottle, a squeeze bottle for water that you add to the paint in small drops, in drops. The paint itself is gouache. You'll get 59 milliliter containers. The colors I'm suggesting are titanium white and ivory black. If you use a different black, you have to use that black throughout the project. Bristol board, 14 by 17 inches. You probably won't need more than about 4 sheets. This is 15 sheets, so you can share it with someone. The second part of the project, you're going to be actually using illustration board. So not the Bristol for the second part, just for the swatch painting. The palette paper that I recommend is specifically for acrylic painting or gouache painting, watercolor painting. It is 12 inches by 16 inch palette pad. So we're going to start by squeezing a large amount of white paint onto the onto my palette, and a smaller amount of black, because we're painting right now. We're painting the tints or the light shades. Let me say a word about paint. Paint, because many of you have not painted before. Paint is pigment suspended in a binder. The binder is what the paint is named after often, such as acrylic paint. The binder is acrylic. Oil paint, the binder is linseed oil. So in this case, this is acrylic gouache. Gouache used to have as a binder gum arabic, but now what we're using is acrylic. The solvent that we're using is water that thins down and also cleans up this paint. And it's important to know what your solvent is when you start to use a type of paint. Okay, so the first swatch that I'm going to paint is white. And I check out the consistency of this paint. It's about the right consistency because gouache is a fairly creamy consistency, which is just what we want. If you feel that it's too thick, a bit too thick, you can add a couple of drops of water, a few drops of water, and mix it with the palette knife. I'm going to saturate my brush and paint my first swatch. Notice that I'm doing one long stroke. You can do several coats. You could paint several passes, make several passes. but one long stroke, not short dabs. Now I'm going to paint my next value. So I'm adding a tiny bit of black to the white. Always add dark to light when you're painting, dark to light. Now actually, I would suggest starting with even a larger amount of white, because I'm only painting a few swatches right now, but you're going to be painting the whole sheet, so you're going to need quite a large amount of paint down. Try to be as neat as possible, but obviously you're going to make some mistakes. Hopefully not on your swatches. So this is a very light value of Now I'm not washing out my brush thoroughly in between. I'm cleaning it a bit on the paper towel, but I'm not washing it in between because that wastes quite a bit of paint, and you don't need to because the increments that we're making are so slight. We would just want to move from white to gray, slightly more gray, more black. Saturate your brush. The look that we're trying to achieve is a flat, opaque designer look. So notice that I'm always skipping one and painting over the gray lines because we're going to use the marks on the edges to cut with at the end. So do not paint to the edge and do not paint to the center. As you paint, if you feel that it's getting a little bit too dry, add a tiny bit of water. Saturate my brush so there's no streaks. Make sure that the paint looks even. And one long stroke. I'm covering the pencil marks. So the beauty of this method is that we paint a lot of swatches and then choose the ones that are most even for the 11-step grayscale with white and black at the end, so there are going to be 9 steps in between. Eventually. I mix with my palette knife and then I saturate my brush. If you feel that the brush is getting too full, you can take some out with the palette knife. You can, as I said before, mitigate the amount of paint in your brush by moving it onto the paper towel. Saturate your brush with the color. And just keep going. You should paint at least 2 sheets. Some people painted 3 or 4. Saturate your brush. One more stroke. One more swatch. You need at least 4 inches because, well, this is 7 inches across. We're going to be cutting 4-inch swatches, so let's say you need at least 5 inches. So try to go 1 inch from the center and 1 inch from the edge. And that's it. Thank you.